Nick, before we dive in, I was amazed to see that Cisco is an amazing software company in addition to its pedigree. So talk a little bit about that, but also please introduce yourself to us, please.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having Cisco on the call today. We're excited to be here. So I run what we call the Global Strategic Partner Organization, Sales Organization, and co-sell team. We are really engaging with companies of all different types, sizes, and business models to try to drive an incremental revenue opportunity for Cisco and our mutual channel partners. So I have a number of technology companies, the hyperscalers, the big system integrators, and ISVs, and the consulting companies that we try to drive a co-sell motion, and where it's appropriate, a resell motion as well. So that's my day job, and we are scaling our co-sell model because we absolutely know we have to get access to new buying centers. We call them new buying centers. We have to be relevant to the line of business buyers. I want to be able to have a conversation with the senior VP of manufacturing in a big manufacturing company and talk to her about her business and talk to her about her business processes and about her business issues, and do that with Cisco technology. But we can do that faster, quicker, more efficiently if we have a partner with us who are embedded in the manufacturing business process and understands that perhaps better than we do. So we're very, very focused on building that strategy, that engagement model, a sales motion in a co-sell motion to execute efficiently, help us extend our value proposition out of IT into the line of business, and accelerate for us as well as for our numerous different partner types that we execute around the world.
Fantastic, Nick. But let me bring you into the conversation as well. Give your introduction, but in addition, tell us a little bit more about how you see the technology buying decisions that have changed because of co-sell.
Yeah, you bet. So thanks very much for having me on this session here today. So I'm Akbar Hassan, Senior Director of Co-Selling Acceleration Group. So that name was chosen very, very deliberately because we've been co-selling at Cisco for a long time. But we haven't been doing it digitally. So as Nick called out, a lot of complex partners, amazing routes to market, a lot of opportunity. And our best sellers have been doing this for well over 5 to 10 years. But we've got to do this in a more digital realm. So my objective at the company, and I report up to Nick, is to create a fully digitized and automated co-selling motion across all of our routes to market to drive profitability for our partners. No small task, but with WorkSpan digital technology, I know we can get there. So your question was really around kind of the line of business and how our technology decisions are shifting, I think. So the way I see this is, and actually it's not even me, it's our partners. Our partners have told us, hey, look, if you look into a customer, you can divide the customer into 3 general buying groups. There's a line of business that Nick called out. There's also app modernization, and then there's IT, right? And these 3 buying centers are talking to one another. When they talk to one another, they are figuring out what the business outcome needs to be, and they're driving it tops down. Now, those conversations for each of those buyers is being had with a partner. So now you think about it from the partner perspective. If the customers are talking to each other internally, the partners need to. And that's where co-selling starts, and that's where the strength actually drives. So as these partners start talking to each other, that is what we consider the multi-partner co-selling motion. And as they connect their relationships into the account, their opportunity now, as you quoted me, is to sell higher into the account and wider across all their portfolio. And this triggers different opportunities because of the multiple relationships you now have into the account. And that's why we say at Cisco, co-selling, it's a big deal. So
absolutely,
hope that answers your question.
Very nicely. Thank you, Akbar. Nick, if I think about how is co-selling supporting the overall Cisco business strategy, and how are you doing co-selling today with partners?
So we've been effectively co-selling with partners for many, many years. I don't think we've coined it co-selling in the past. I think a lot of us have influenced sold for many, many years. What we're really focused on, though, is finding ways to digitize the co-selling experience. Fundamentally, if you don't digitize, you can't legitimize influence selling or co-selling. Many of my peers that are on this call have formalized their co-sell motion through digital tools that allow us to track and validate and integrate with our sales teams where partners of all shapes and sizes and types are adding value to our selling process. So what we're going to be doing, and what we are doing candidly, is moving to more of a digital platform for co-selling, making sure that we've got absolute trackability of where a deal is sourced, how it progresses through the selling cycle, and when it's closed, and give the right attribution to the right partners that actually had an influence along that journey. I didn't answer the question you kicked off with, and that's about Cisco being a software company.
Yeah.
Cisco is one of the biggest software companies in the world, and it's something that I think we need to continue to remind everybody about. With billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of software coming from everything from WebEx platforms to security platforms to infrastructure management platforms to many other different things that we're selling around the data center and enterprise networking. So there's billions and billions of dollars worth of software business inside of our portfolio today. And if you just sit on any of our earnings calls, you'll see the metrics for our company are all software metrics now as we go forward. As we are driving more and more software into our business, and as we show up more as a software company, it is becoming more and more critical that we have an integrated set of playbooks, solutions, joint architectures with other ISVs, whether that's a small ISV or a very large ISV. We have to have an integrated playbook, and that means we have to have an integrated sales strategy and sales methodology to engage them, because some of those software companies will not sell our technology, but they do want to coexist with us. They want to co-sell with us to take advantage of the presence that Cisco has in our accounts, and we want to take advantage of their presence that they have in the same accounts, so that we can have a stronger solution portfolio to the client and really solve some of their unique business issues together, and really drive this overused term that everybody's using, a business outcome. But we're deadly serious about that. If we don't deliver a business outcome to our customers, our value is limited. So creating that business value with partners in the era of partnering is absolutely critical for us. And we're going to do that with partners that want to sell our technology, but we're also going to do that with companies that want to be complementary to Cisco in a co-sell motion and build integrated portfolios that will help us get access to some of these new buyers, get access to some new budgets, get access to the line of business that will extend, as Akbar was saying, extend our value proposition, deepen our engagement with our customers, with and through our partners, and ultimately create a more profitable and a more expansive revenue opportunity for Cisco and any partner that's engaging with us.
Fantastic. And Nick, I want to ask this more directly as well. Cisco has such a long tradition around distribution and reselling, right? Long historic partnerships around that. And now along comes the co-sell motion. How do you think the co-sell motion is different or complementary in your case with reselling? You talked a little bit about that, but can you expand perhaps?
Yeah. Well, I sort of touched on that. I mean, co-selling is not new to Cisco. The phrase co-selling is new to Cisco, right? We've been working with companies that don't resell our technology or an ecosystem of partners for many, many years. What you're seeing us do now is formalize a strategy, formalize a set of tools, formalize our intent to be more predictable in terms of how we're sourcing revenue with companies that are complementary to our existing more traditional routes to market. I mean, you'll hear Cisco talk, and we have our partner summit coming up in a little over 2 weeks, and we're all heads down getting ready for that, where we continue to talk about opening up new routes to market for Cisco, but also for our existing partners as well. Many of our channel partners and distributors are also trying to look for new sources of revenue, and they're also working with companies that don't sell technology or sell their technology and have a co-sell motion with them. So we are augmenting that, we're supplementing that, and candidly, we intend to lead that. as we go forward in the marketplace. And we're going to lead through thought leadership. We're going to lead through having the right digital assets. We're going to lead by having resources in the field that are actually becoming the brokers of that multi-partner, multi-tiered engagement to streamline and simplify the experience for all the partners that are engaged in a deal. We could have a reseller engage with an ISV. They could have their own ISV relationship. That's an ISV with Cisco as well. We could have a small consulting company that's building out. I use the senior VP of manufacturing as an example, but we could have a consulting company, and I have a number of them today that are advising senior VPs of manufacturing on how to evolve their supply chain architecture. And as they evolve their business process for the supply chain, they need an underlying technology architecture, whether that's delivered in software, delivered in the cloud, or delivered on-prem. It doesn't matter. They need an underlying technology architecture that enables that workflow. And that technology architecture can be built with a consultant, with the software companies that actually that provide the technology for that supply chain, including Cisco software, in a very collaborative way. And that's our mission, that's our strategy, and that's what we're doing. And that's what you'll see us scale out as we go forward over the next few years.
Yeah, what a fantastic insight. In some ways, reselling can become even better with co-sellers, right? With co-selling, and this idea that you're expanding the TAM or the addressable market for any reseller through co-sell motions with ISV partners is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, I think everybody's trying to, the resellers are really trying to fundamentally build their margin profile. We're myopically focused on helping resellers with their margin growth with Cisco. And they're going to do that by selling services that also wrap around Cisco software assets and hardware assets, but they're also there's a massive opportunity for them to sell their services and their portfolio around their co-sell partners. Whether it's building a workflow, whether it's managing an infrastructure, whether it's evolving and customizing an application, whether it's talking to a customer about their journey to cloud and helping them navigate. I know we have colleagues from AWS here, how to navigate the journey to AWS in the public cloud or manage a private cloud, or as most customers are doing, having a hybrid cloud environment. How do you manage through that? So there's a role for the reseller, there's a role for the distributor, there's a role for the ISV, there's a role for the consultant in all of that narrative. Our job is to make sure we pull that together for Cisco and for our customers in a thoughtful way, in a simple way, because that's what I just went through sounds pretty darn complex to me. So our job is to try to reduce complexity and make the interface to the customer as simple as possible, and candidly, make the interface to our numerous partners as simple as possible to make it easy to sell that business outcome that we are wanting to deliver to our customers.
Nice. Akbar, turning to you, Nick talked about that you've been doing co-selling for a long time, but this is different. What you're talking about is augmenting that with multi-partner digital co-selling. So adding capabilities to do it at scale and digitally. First describe what that means, and can you take some successful examples of multi-partner GTMs?
Yeah, sure. So what that means to Nick and I is creating a set of capabilities for these partners to find each other, explore their combined value, drive collaborative sales engagements to access those new buying centers, multiplying their relationships into the account to drive the business outcome, right? Any one of those things is not easy to digitize, right? It can be done, but then connecting them is the real secret sauce. How do you make that process as simple as possible? And what an example of a win might look like is the following. We had an ISV that won a huge deal in a conference center in the UK, right? And it actually went something like this. We had a relationship in the account, but we had it at a certain level. And in that account, they wanted to really focus on reopening their conference centers post-COVID. And they had lost a lot of money post-COVID, right? Just like everyone did. Everyone is in that recovery curve right now. So how do you make up for lost revenue? So start off as a Cisco question, which then went to, hey, I know an ISV who actually uses software through cameras to do crowd monitor, crowd business intelligence, so we can make sure that the conference center can open within the guidelines of the UK. So that's pretty awesome. That got bigger and went into a whole country digitization effort that we have and became a key component of multiple conference centers. So you've got this, co-selling, it's a big deal theme going again, right? Where one thing triggers another thing, triggers another thing. This started off as a small little ask with a conference director that represented the line of business and app modernization and IT, and moved into a pretty large deal across the ISV, the local reseller, Cisco, and all their portfolios and services were all intertwined to develop and deliver the solution to the conference center that allowed them to reopen. Now, the interesting part was, as they were analyzing all of this data through the cameras, different ideas around services for the customer started to spawn. So I said, hey, wait a minute, we can now do a little bit of crowd flow. So now digital signage comes into it, right, where they can start directing the crowd dynamically. But then most importantly, and I thought this was really funny, is they can charge different amounts for where the crowd actually is moving over a couple of days. So they've got historical data to say, hey, a conference center, the way it's set up, we'll have to charge you this much rent here, this much rent here. And that actually added to their revenue streams. So it's these kinds of business outcomes that trigger other business outcome questions, which trigger more deals, which drives the whole selling higher, selling wider. So hopefully that was a good example for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I found this example particularly interesting as stadiums, for example, have opened up after COVID. So this particular ISV is able to drive more deals at stadiums, managing crowd intelligence together with GSIs and resellers. So what a great example.
And there is one more thing, right? So that was just, stadiums, but why couldn't you take that and go cross industry on it? You can absolutely do the same thing in hospitals and transportation centers, right? So you can take that same
Airports, yeah,
airports is a great example. So that is, I know what the local team is doing, and they're actually going cross country now. So you never know when that technology is going to find its way into your next event.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that while Cisco technologies like Meraki, UCS, Catalyst switches, and things like that can form the layer, but it's really the ISV that has the line of business use cases by vertical, and then you have the Cisco reseller channel to actually sell this.
Absolutely, and that's what I would call connected co-selling, right? Because now it starts multiplying out.
And now, if you take this to not just one business unit at Cisco, but also WebEx and security, you can find similar solutions across the board.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about how are you connecting this co-selling with other parts of the ecosystem Flywheel. What has been Cisco's experience around this topic?
Yeah, so I really loved your Flywheel, and we live that at Cisco. So, we're using all parts of that Flywheel. So we're definitely looking at co-innovate, right, to build a co-development process and solution catalogs for our partners. And we have these things, right? We've had these things for years, but let's bring them all together into one system, as you mentioned, the ecosystems, Flywheel system. And then from there, we are providing the ability through your co-market to manage multiple campaigns, collect leads, decide if those leads are opportunities, and transfer them to your co-sell module that you mentioned. And then there you can track the opportunity from submitted, invite different partners into the co-selling motion, and then track that lead all the way from submitted to engaged to won. And then, of course, we can run some of those analytics and say, hey, what kind of co-investment does that qualify for? And there's no shortage of partner incentives at Cisco, but just coalescing this into one unified system, the way you guys have drawn it out is incredibly powerful, and it adds to the simplicity that everyone on this call is striving for, right? That is the real important key, because The interesting point you made also around multiple partners actually driving a better deal cycle is absolutely true. If you ask a typical salesperson, they'll say, oh, wait a minute, I got more customers in the account. If you ask the customer, they'll say, wait a minute, everyone who I need to make this decision is sitting on the other side of the virtual table. This is a faster decision for me because I've got everyone connected and everyone talking about the same solution. So my deal intrinsically is moving faster. So that's something we're starting to see more and more.
Yeah, but this must have been a monumental change for you guys as you are navigating this change. So how do you manage the change around people, process, and tech for co-selling? Give us some insights so that others who are on that journey can learn from this.
Yeah, sure. I'll start, Nick, and then you can chime in. So people, processes, and tech, let's just stick around that theme. So from people, this is not a mystery. This is behavior change management, right? Moving from resell to co-sell, or that shift, because there's always going to be folks that are very comfortable in the way they're doing it until you start showing them wins, which we have been doing. So that is huge, right? And that drives from a single partner to a multi-partner motion. And that also expands from just focusing on the IT buyer to multiple buying centers. So that is a behavioral and selling motion change that is super important to drive. And we've been driving that, and we've been celebrating the folks that do that the best, which is one of the best ways to drive change. Number two, on the process, new partners really require new programmatic benefits, right? So we have to measure our business in a way, like Nick mentioned, I really like that, digitize to legitimize, right? We've got to analyze the growth so that we can scale to it and we can make sure that we're driving the right benefits to the right partners and investing in the right partners. But partners for us doesn't mean just one type of partner, it's multiple partners that we drive business with at Cisco. And lastly, around the technology, keying off of digitize to legitimize, that's where WorkSpan is making it easier and faster for us to improve the trackability of these multi-partner motions across all the 4 capabilities that you mentioned. So that is a change management project in itself. But change is nothing new to Cisco. We've been capturing these market transitions, every couple of years, and that's just built into our nature is to, I would say, evolve and not revolve, right? Because when you're revolving, you're just doing the same thing again and again. We're constantly looking to evolve to the next. Nick, anything you want to add?
Oh, you did a great job, Akbar. I think we're less focused on recruiting net new. I want to make sure we're clear. We're not necessarily going out and recruiting thousands of new partners. I mean, we have thousands. I mean, we have something like 60,000 partners worldwide right now. What we are looking to do is to have a more prescriptive engagement with an ecosystem. And we are looking to make sure that prescriptive engagement, however we define it, is grounded in a business outcome that is accretive to everybody. Right? And that's super hard to do. And it sounds very, 30,000 footish. But the reality is if we don't create the business outcome for the customer together with partners, and partners who just candidly don't do what we do, then we won't have the value that we want to create for our customers. So our people policy and processes will evolve to have us more engaged in a co-sell motion. We need this ecosystem, many of which are represented on this call, I think, today, to work with us, to help us on this journey, and to be part of the journey with us. And this is something that we feel, as we discussed earlier, it's part of our evolution of partnering at Cisco. It's about continually adding value to the customer, continually adding value to our partners, and accelerating the selling opportunity for Cisco as we go forward. So super excited. It's a new era for us in terms of legitimizing co-selling holistically for the company. And we appreciate everybody who's participating with us in this journey, including you, Amit, and WorkSpan.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick, for that emotion. And Badr just complimented you guys for managing the shift, being part of an early ecosystem team at Cisco. He said this is such a great thing to see.
Thank you.
There are a couple of questions, Chip. Can we take them?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we've got a lot of good, interesting questions. Why don't we start with, I thought this was a really interesting question from John. Changing selling behavior of resellers to think about co-selling has been slow. Any pointers for accelerating this change management?
Yeah, I think a couple of things that seem to really work is really looking at it from the partner's perspective, right? In terms of what Nick called out, managing or accelerating their margin. How can we help, right? And if the reseller wants to continue to have what we call the price knife fight down in IT versus being involved at a higher level in that conversation, which is selling higher in the account, starting earlier, that's a decision that we offer them. We say, hey, this is actually working to drive that, right? And it's not difficult. It's just a Starbucks conversation with a new partner, and you just you sit there and you get to know one another. I think trust factor, John, is the biggest thing, right? And we actually drive P2P workshops, as Amit called out, to drive those connections for resellers to connect with other ecosystem partners so they can see that these solutions are completely complementary, number one, right? Number two, it does extend their relationship in the account. And number three, it increases their sales force multiplier, right? Because they've got more folks out there carrying their brand. And number four, it extends the channel partner's brand preference. No longer are you just being talked about as, so many more wireless add-ons at IT. You're being talked about as the next partner that is expanding the manufacturing capability, right, of a major auto company. So these are some of the things that we discuss with our channel partners. John, happy to have an offline discussion with you on more ideas. I don't know, Nick, if you had anything to add to that.
So I think that the change management for the reseller is just grounded in the margin opportunity. So John, I think what you'll find in the resell is that you will drive more margin, particularly your services margin, with a solution that's delivered with Cisco and an ISV or another technology company, because you're going to wrap around that solution your services, your capabilities, other things that you will sell that's complementary to that solution stack. So I'm very bullish on the opportunity for the channel. Many of the channel partners that I talk to, some of which actually report into me, are equally excited because they agree with that point that there's margin to be made. Yep. When you bring together software companies in the channel, perhaps with the hyperscalers as well, the opportunity ahead of us, and I'm not being overly dramatic here, but I think the opportunity is massive. I think the margin profile for selling software in an integrated solution to the line of business with 3 different or more partners in the loop, if you can keep that engagement simple, if you can keep it simple and streamlined, is huge, and that's what we're doubling down on as we go through our fiscal year this year.
Maybe one final question, which is a little bit related, but I thought this was interesting. What guidance could you provide to an organization from Kelly that wants to get into co-selling with their partners? What are some must-haves and some red flags?
Well, that's a really great question. I think you've got to understand. You've got to define what co-selling means to you first and foremost, and get your leadership team to understand that it's viable and that it's not a loosey-goosey kind of selling methodology. I think the companies that do co-selling really, really well are the companies who've said, wait a minute, we understand strategically that co-selling with partners is incremental to us, perhaps not always on the resell model, but it is incremental to us in helping sell a broader portfolio holistically to the customer. I've just seen that time and time again. So define co-selling, get your sales leadership and ideally your executive leadership to be in the boat with you to build the systems, tools, and processes to enable a real co-sell motion. We talk about digitize to legitimize co-sell for that very reason. And that's the mission that Akbar and I are on in our current fiscal year. To me, that's the baseline. And then as Akbar said earlier, having solution portfolios with the co-sell partners is absolutely vital as well. If you don't have a differentiated value proposition, then what do you need the partnership for, right? So you've got to innovate, differentiate, and I, if any of you've read anything I put out there on LinkedIn or with the analysts, that's what I talk about. You've got to innovate with partners, innovate in technology and innovation. You've got to innovate in route to market evolution, innovate in the go-to-market like co-selling, and you innovate to differentiate. If you've got a differentiated value proposition, you will always find top line and bottom line growth wherever you exist and wherever you exist in the customer life cycle, whatever you're selling. So legitimize the co-sell motion, have solution portfolios that resonate with the clients, that generate real business outcomes, and then move it quickly into the selling process and measure it, track it, and ensure success through analytics is the way that we're going to do it, and how I've seen some of our peers in the industry be successful with co-sell.
Wow, what a strong summary.
We're a little passionate about this.
I can see the passion around this topic. That's awesome, Nick and Akbar. And I think there are so many questions in the chat that we didn't get time to do it, but we'll get there. Akbar and Nick, people are asking about how do you measure and stuff like that. I encourage you guys to write a blog around measurement around co-sell, because I think you have a unique approach around it. So with that, thank you so much, Nick. Thank you so much, Akbar, for your insights.
Thank you for having us, and good luck everybody with your co-sell strategies. Take care.
Thank you, guys.